Welcome to the Power Up Talk Show, a talk show where we bring together community leaders and people that are making a difference in our world. I am Sandy Spady, your host, and today I am so excited to introduce an amazing guest, Phil Friedrich. Yay, applause. Phil and I met 5 years ago, probably when I first was recently moved to Omaha, and he was an ambassador with my Red Ribbon Crew ambassador. He's a great community leader. He volunteers just a ton with our community. And also, he has 12 years experience at Northwestern Mutual. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the show today.
And did I also mention that he has a podcast, and the name of the podcast is Who Knew in the Moment?
Yes.
Is that right?
It is. Yeah, just did our 300 and some episodes, so.
Okay. He's going to be great here with the interview, folks, because he's already interviewed, 300 and some people?
Yeah.
That is awesome. Phil, tell us exactly about Phil, what you do, and then I want to talk about the podcast, and then I have some great questions for anyone out there that has financial questions.
You betcha. So, like you mentioned, run the financial planning practice. I've been doing that, 12, 13 years now, and we work with clients kind of all over the country, which the amazing part of that is there's so many different areas of planning that every day is a little bit of a nuance. Then I have the rental real estate company, so I buy rental properties, and I haven't done the Airbnb thing yet, but just the long-term rentals. And then, like you mentioned, I've got the podcast, and so that's fun. You know, we bring on great guests that have phenomenal stories and just highlight those moments in time where you didn't know exactly how it was going to play out, but you knew, hey, this is going to be an inflection point in my life.
Speaking of the moment in your life that changed or pivoted your life, what would that be for you?
Ooh. There's a lot of them that I think of, but, specifically on the financial planning side, I was a senior in high school. And as many sports players know, there's the senior night, and that's when your parents get to walk out on the court. Long story short, my parents had an obligation, so they couldn't go. So my sister and my two best friends walked me out on senior night. And that next day I Googled jobs where you don't have a boss, because I wanted to make sure that I would have all autonomy. And so financial advisor came up, and I said, all right, I'm going to tuck that in my brain. Someday when I'm looking for a career, I'm going to pursue that. And so that was a pivotal moment in my life.
That is a great story. Yeah. As far as a financial advisor, I know there's a lot of trends going on, and I feel like in the world we live in, which we probably have said that, people said that 20 years ago, right? The world we live in, just like Elvis Presley. Oh, it's terrible. In today's world, what do you find as a financial advisor, the trends?
So with the world of social media, I think the beauty of it is people are more educated now than they've probably ever been on different options, like rental real estate, for example. I mean, 10 years ago when I started doing that, it was maybe one or two people in a town that did it, but now it's kind of a hot topic. And so I think the beauty of it is you see a lot of different avenues and ways to do it. I think one of the downsides of all of the information is people try and do a little bit of everything. And that oftentimes means they're not great at any one thing in their financial planning. And so one element of trending and financial advice we give is don't try and compare yourself to the Joneses and do everything that everyone else does. Find the thing that you're comfortable with, that you feel good about, and then pursue that, because that's probably going to give you the best overall outcome.
What do you find for advice for the young people in the audience that have their first great job, they've been working a while, and they're like, maybe I should start saving for my future? What advice can you give to those young professionals?
So I'll give you two pieces. One is a life lesson that my dad taught me. And so when I was a kid, he gave me $1 a month as an allowance, okay? And that never changed from, I think it was kindergarten until I was 18. I got $1 a month, and he said, Phil, 1/4 of this you have to give to the church. 1/4 of it you have to put in the piggy bank. 50 cents you get to spend. And once again, I mean, this is the 90s and the 2000s, right? So 50 cents wasn't going a long way. But the important thing was I learned the principle of money, right? And that is, hey, there's something that every dollar needs to go towards. So you should do something fun for someone else, right? Give it away, whether that's a church, a charity, someone that's in need. There's an element of future you that needs money, and then there's things that you have to pay for today and spend on. So I think that's a really important lesson that I learned that has helped me, because all of a sudden you're not making $1, right? You're making $100 or $1,000 or $10,000, and then it's like, wow, these dollars grow, but the percentages or the principles stay the same. So I think that's a really important piece of it. And then the second piece that I would give to anyone that's just getting started is, as unattractive of a comment it is, figure out your budget, what you have to spend money on and what you decide to spend money on, and then see if there's anything that you should be cutting out to help you get to the goal. I think oftentimes we forget that if I spend the dollar today on something, that means I don't have it for the future thing, right? So frequently we'll hear people say, well, I'd really like to buy the new house, but I just bought a new car, and had I known I was going to buy the house, maybe I wouldn't have bought as expensive of a car today. So fine tune your budget, really find out where's your money going and how much of it should be going there versus how much you should be putting away for future you.
So as a financial advisor, it's so important, right, to gain trust. You know, you're giving your savings, your 401ks. How do you build that trust with your customers?
Yeah, so I think there's one element of like in a conversation, right? And I think part of that is making sure that you're more interested about them than about yourself. So frequently people want to talk about them, and I know that's a little contradictory as I talk about myself today, but in normal dynamics, right, it's really just asking questions about others and learning about them, and not just stopping at that first level of question, but really finding out the why behind the reason. And I think everyone has that, but it's just a very infrequently spoken about topic, especially finances, right? I mean, as people say, don't talk about politics and don't talk about finances. And every day I have to talk about the financial part of it. And so we just want to make it a very common conversation instead of something that, hey, I don't talk about this, my family never talked about it. We want to just bring those items to light. The second element of building trust is the long-lasting relationships. And that's what I love about what I do. You know, I mean, there's folks we've worked with for 12 or 13 years. When I met them, maybe their kids were 3 and now they're 16 and driving a car. You know, I mean, it's just a different experience. But I think it's trying to go a little bit above and beyond just the financial piece. So, you know, if we have, like last week on Friday, a client of ours was coaching a football game and his son was playing in the game. And so we went to the game and got to spend some time with his wife. And once again, purely wanted to go because I wanted to support them. But I think those items grow the trust in the relationship, even though it has nothing necessarily to do with the finances specifically.
Where do you find that it's harder to build that trust? A woman, husband and wife, a young person, like where's the most challenged demographic as far as building that trust?
Really good question. I think the toughest demographic is when someone's had a bad experience with an advisor previously, right? Unfortunately, you can kind of group everyone into a similar category and they say, oh, well, I had a bad experience 10 years ago with this person, so I don't want to pursue that. And so what I always help people understand is, although a lot of people can be categorized as like a financial advisor, you know, we don't all operate the same way, or we don't all make the same types of recommendations. It can vary depending on, you know, the advisor and their, I guess, opinion on how advising should be done. So I think that's typically the hardest. But once again, always just coming back to, hey, the more I can get to know about you and what's important to you, the more I'm just sharing with you strategies that can help you, opposed to saying, you know, hey, here's the newest, coolest product out there. It's like, no, let's start with you first, and then we'll figure out what strategies make sense.
I like that. As far as financial advisors, realtors, like those two industries, there's a lot of you, right?
Yep.
What makes you stand out from the other financial advisors?
This is where I get to pitch myself. No,
I tell everyone every day, you need to be the cheerleader for yourself.
If you're not going to, who's going to?
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, the two things I would say, one is, so there are certain credentials that you can get in the financial advising world. So one that I've pursued is what's called a CFP, or a Certified Financial Planner. And so that means that we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients. Fancy word for just saying that we always have to have the best interest of the client in mind, and then we have to make sure that every year we're keeping that up to date. So sometimes you can meet someone, make a recommendation, and what made sense for Sandy in 2002, I don't have to worry, does it make sense for in 2024? Whereas once you have the CFP marks, you have to make sure that that's consistently the same answer. And so I think that helps us differentiate, because it's not just, hey, we implemented this with you and I haven't spoken to you in 5 years. It's, hey, we implemented this, but let's touch base again in 4 months and see how your life has changed. And if it has, maybe what we did needs to change. So I think that's one element of it. The second part of really planning that I think we try and go above and beyond is once again, it's the small touch points. I'm a nerd, but wishing someone a happy birthday is like my favorite thing to do. Watching, once again, kids, experience sporting event or graduating a high school or college, whatever it is, like we want to support people in those moments because we know it matters to them. And so I think that helps us, really create that relationship that's more than just, oh, Philly's my finance guy, right? Hey, we want to be Philly's my most trusted person. Yeah. And we find that the more touch points we can have, the better, relationships we can have with the people.
Yes, it's 101 sales. It's not what I get out of it, it's what I can give, right?
That's right.
I have been people our entire lives. Yeah. As far as your ideal customer, if you could be like, I can pick my ideal customer at this age doing something, this, that I can really just give them a secure financial freedom. Yeah. What would be that ideal customer?
So, and I've juggled with this, right? Yeah. I didn't grow up in affluence. Both my parents were in the world of education, which is a noble career and it's a great opportunity, but it's not necessarily the career where you're going to make millions of dollars, right? And so I've always, thought, man, I just want to help everyone. And so we try and help everyone that we can. I would say if we were looking at like the majority of our clients, oftentimes they're business owners. And once again, business owners can transcend a lot of different arenas. But what I've found is that oftentimes our business owner clients really enjoy what they do and the business, and that's why they started the business. However, maybe they don't love the financial side of it, right? Maybe they're really good as a doctor and they started practice, but they don't like to do the finances. Or maybe it's someone that started a electrical business, right? And they're a great electrician, or they know how to hire electricians and get jobs. They just don't love doing the finance side of it. So we work with a lot of business owners.
Nice. As far as you standing out, if you haven't noticed, Phil has always been a sharp, fun dresser. And even as an ambassador for the ribbon cuttings, you always knew Phil was in the room because he would just come in with his essence and his great clothing ability. What and when did all this great clothing, suits, plaids, like it takes confidence to stand out, right? And that does help you stand out. What is behind that, and how do you find the confidence just to do that?
So it's a funny story. We were in Arizona, and we were in one of my friend's weddings, and we had stopped by a polo store. And anyway, there was these pink shorts, and I'm from a small town in Seward, Nebraska. Let me tell you, males don't wear pink shorts in a town that size. And so anyway, I was like, I'd really like to get them, but I think I would just get made fun of. And my buddy goes, Phil, it's not about what you wear, it's about how you wear it. And I go, well, then I'm going to get the pink shorts. I got the pink shorts. Exactly what I thought was going to happen did happen. My friends made fun of me, right? They're like, who wears pink shorts? And anyway, though, to your point, I was like, but I like the way it looks, so I'm going to keep wearing it. So as I then was in a professional career and wearing suits and whatnot, I don't know, I've always been drawn to, I guess, a little bit out there type suits. And I was like, well, I like these though. And so I kind of just kept purchasing those types of suits. And then to your point, every once in a while I'll hear, oh, you're the guy that wears the loud suit, or you're the guy that has the pink suit. And so here we are today. But that's where it all stemmed from. Yeah, we were just in Arizona shopping, and I wanted a pair of pink shorts, and here we are today.
I love that. And I tell women, and men too, right, that your branding is who you are as a person.
Yep. And
the most confident branding you can do is to be yourself. Yep. And you're being yourself. And guess what? People remember that about you. Yes. Like me with my big classes.
Yeah, well, I think the fun thing about it is like, you're not doing it to be someone else. It's just, this is what I feel the most comfortable and confident in. And so this is what I'm going to wear today.
And when you're feeling confident in yourself, that's when confidence comes flying through.
Yeah.
It's when you try to be someone that you're not, then you have to work at it.
Absolutely. And that's so true. And I think, once again, going back to even the trusting side of things, you talk about building authentic relationships, and if you're your authentic self, right? I mean, the downside is, well, if someone doesn't like that, right? And we do have that, right? I shared earlier, sometimes people are like, Phil, what the heck are you wearing? And it's like, it's just what I like to wear. Yeah. But at the same token, I think most people, they're like, yeah, this does just seem to be you. And Phil, for some reason, that weird suit just matches your personality. I don't know what that says about my personality, but
he's fun. It works. I know him. Yes. As far as community, right? Yeah. You've done a lot with the community. I know you've been one of my ambassadors for the Greater Omaha Chamber, Red
Yep.
Room Crew.
Yeah.
What do you get out of giving back to the community?
So, I mean, one, way more than I give, I get back. But the two things that always stick out to me is, Omaha is this unique city where it's big in regards to, you'll probably never meet everyone, but it's small in regards to, it's amazing how you go to some of these events and 3 weeks later you run into someone that you met at the event and you go, oh, well, I guess it's not as big of a city as what I thought it was. You can really get those intimate relationships. And I value that a bunch. And so it's fun when you can give back and support people, and then you run into them in just your normal everyday life, working out at Lifetime or, at a Creighton basketball game, whatever it is, and you have that relationship. The second part for me is really tying into missions that I have a strong passion for. So I'm sitting on a board for a nonprofit, and it's something that, I wouldn't trade that hour every month for anything. I want to be there, and I know they need the assistance and the help, and I'm a very willing person to give that. So I think that's something that for me, I value giving the information, the knowledge, and the time. And they're, clearly appreciating what we're able to provide for them too.
As far as community, I believe you've been a coach for high schoolers too.
Yeah.
Right? Out of all the volunteer things that you've done, what was your most rewarding volunteer?
I'm going to split into two different elements.
Okay.
So on the coaching side, the thing I loved about it was, so I played basketball my whole life, and you look back on it and you go, there were days where I know I wasn't very good, and there was some dad that was willing to show up and teach me the basics, and without that, I would have never had the opportunity to play college basketball. So, there's something about finding people that are just in that phase of life that they're very impressionable and they're willing to take feedback. I think we can all agree we've been in seasons of our life where I'm the smartest person in the room. I don't need the feedback. Thanks for giving it, but I'm going to stiff arm it. And there's certain age ranges where that's just not the case yet, And so when I got to coach, that was one of those opportunities where, you're meeting. I coached at Concordia University for a while, and it's 18 to 23, 24-year-old guys that are just in that phase of life, right? They're away from their parents, but they're not yet maybe fully adults, and they're looking for information. And so, hey, maybe I can be a source of knowledge for them at some level. So I really appreciated that. And now, one of them that I'm serving on is called the Urban Financial Services Coalition, and the focus is bringing financial literacy to the Black and Brown community in Omaha. And so that's really important to me because, like I shared earlier, my dad taught me the value of a dollar very early in my life, and that helped me the rest of my life. And I think for most people, the sentiment is, I didn't learn this in school, and if my parents didn't talk to me about it, I just might wake up at 40 years old and just not have the knowledge that these are things I should be doing. And so that group is really focused on bringing financial literacy into, the community here in Omaha, and so that's been really fun.
And I think when you realize that you're really blessed in some categories of your life, that you want to share that with others, and it's giving back.
Yep.
And your expertise is finance, so why wouldn't you give that
Exactly.
back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it all blends in together.
It's a perfect mix.
I would love to talk more about Who Knew in the Moment podcast.
Yeah.
When did it start? Why did you start it? And how did someone get on it?
So, we're bringing Sandy on. So it started, what was it? December of 2020 is when I started it. And so every November I take a little trip vacation to set my goals for the next year.
Nice.
And I took a good friend of mine, his wife and their son, to Colorado with me. And I said, hey, during the day, I'm going to be focused on my goals, but at night, it'd be fun to have someone to hang out with. Well, anyway, on the way out there, we're driving. I'm asking the husband a bunch of questions, and his wife from the back seat goes, have you ever thought about having a podcast? And I go, I've thought about it, but I'm busy. I don't need another thing to do, right? And so I just left it at that. But then I'm sitting there making my goals for the next year, and I go, maybe there's a reason that the question was asked while I'm on my way to make my goals. And so I had been reading a book at that time, and it's called The Power of Moments by Dan and Chip Heath. And what they focus on is, why do people remember certain things in their life? And they said, you have 90,000 thoughts a day, but inevitably you're only going to remember certain experiences, or you're only going to remember certain moments in the life that you live. And so I started to think, well, gosh, people that have had, career success, whether it's in professional athletics, starting a business, whatever it is, they've had so many moments, but why did they, matter and how did they get to where they're at. And so that's really what we focus on are, people that have those stories. Just this week we recorded with a gentleman that played in the NBA for years, and you just go, how the heck did you go from Peoria, Illinois to actually getting into the NBA when you weren't the best basketball player in the country? You were maybe only offered small level basketball scholarships, and how did we get here? So that's really the focus of the show, is highlighting those moments, how people have gotten to where they're at. And I think the amazing thing that I've taken away from 300 episodes now is anyone that's at a mountaintop moment, or from the distance seems to be at a mountaintop moment, you didn't see all the valleys they went through to get to that moment. And they would also tell you that every mountaintop moment they've ever been at was just a stepping stone to a next moment. And so I think, for me, the piece I'm trying to take away and implement in my life is like, be really appreciative and enjoy everything in the journey and where you're at. Allow yourself to enjoy the wins. I oftentimes don't allow that because I'm afraid that I might get comfortable. And at the same token, don't let yourself get comfortable, because there's probably going to be a next mountaintop moment if you keep striving.
That is exactly about the same time Win with Voices started, 2020. And it's the journey that people want to hear.
Yep.
They see you're successful, but it's that journey that gives them hope.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Well, and to paraphrase a quote that I heard once, it's, people can respect you and admire you from a distance based on what you've accomplished, but people connect with you based on your journey, right? And the more transparent you can be about all the different things that's taken to get to where you're at, oftentimes that allows people to really be like, man, I really know Sandy, and I know all the hard work that's gone to having the show and where she's at. Whereas someone that doesn't know you sees, oh, well, she's got this show. She must have just always been, on a trajectory for this. And you go, well, no, let me rewind the clock to 2020 when I'm getting this started. And people are like, what the heck are you doing, right? And you go, I'm not entirely sure what the answer to that question is, but I'm working towards it. So I think, once again, kudos to you and what you're doing.
Thank you. And it's like, you don't have to know what you're doing, but when you get that passion, like you're in that car driving, you just know it's right and you just do it. And we're going to make mistakes, but you just keep doing it.
Absolutely.
All right. Tell me a win. What's a win for you? Like when you're like, yes, that's a win.
So a perspective that I have is, I always say you have good days or great days. There's no bad days. I sat on a pediatric cancer board once, and this is probably 6 years ago. And we had a board meeting. It was, like 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm driving there, and I probably had a bad day of work, right? Like maybe a deal didn't go the way I thought it was, or whatever it was. And I would remember being like, this is not where I want to be, right? I want to be working. I want to be doing something else. And I walk in, and there's a 6 or 7 year old that's bald. And I go, Phil, you don't have problems. And not even from like a comparison standpoint, but just in regards to like, all right, a deal didn't go the way you wanted. Like, your health is still good, your family's healthy. Like, there are people that are in a really tough moment, right? And so I've always looked at it as, it's like, I have good days and I have great days, right? Good days are when things don't go exactly as planned, but there were still a couple wins. Great days are when most things went as planned, and there was less things to complain about or be upset with. And so I think for me, the win is having that perspective, right? Is that every day there is something that I'm taking away as like, this was a great win.
You find out slowly when you start being really grateful for the things you have, that you have better days and better days. Because like you said, you thought you were having a total bad day that day, and then you see this poor young, child going through cancer. And so everyone, think about a great day and think about the gratitude and live it. I like that. Good job. Yes. Okay. Okay, we have time.
Okay.
You inspire a lot of people. Obviously, with your podcast, you get people from all over. Or in Nebraska for your podcast. What and who inspires you? You inspire others. You bring great people in. Who inspires Phil?
I mean, there's a long list of people, right? Simply stated, there's so many people that, especially once again with the world of social media, that you can really learn from. I've had a business coach for 7 years, and the amazing things he's done, that inspires me. But when you originally asked the question, the first thing that my head went to is a story that I'll share. So my dad has started as a pastor, then he got out of pastoral work and started fundraising at the university level, and he just kind of climbed in the university ranks. And the thing that I will tell you that I take away, and they're two small things, but it always sticks out to me, and he's never once talked to me about it. I just have witnessed it, and my business coach says this frequently. He goes, Phil, you are not taught as many things as what you catch or what you caught. And I think that's super important because there's a lot of things in life that no one's ever verbally told you need to do, but you've witnessed other people do it, so then you just do that. And on his side, two things I remember as a kid seeing him do that, once again, I think just made a big impression on me was one, he would always park far away from the door when he could have parked closer. And once again, I've never asked him about it, but I've heard him speak, and he goes, yeah, at the end of the day, it's not inconvenient for me to park further away. It's inconvenient for someone that maybe isn't as in good a shape, right? That needs a closer spot. So that always sticks out to me. So I usually park not as far away, but pretty far away, just because I'm like, someday I'm going to need that closer spot, and I hope people can think that way. The second thing is we were in Minnesota just a few months ago. It was my nephew, my dad, and I, and we're walking to go play some baseball. And at the university my dad's at in Minnesota, he's picking up some trash. And once again, he's not saying, hey, I'm picking up trash. You just are watching him do it. I've seen him do this thousands of times, but he just respects, this is where I work. I want it to look good. And my nephew, as we're walking, all of a sudden, he's 7. He dips a little to the left, and I'm like, what does he see? And he goes and he picks up a wrapper and brings it over. And it was just like re-fortifying to me, that idea of it's like, no one told him to go grab that wrapper. No one said my dad's picking up trash because that's what you do. He just had a moment of like, all right, grandpa's picking up trash. Like, I see trash, I should go do that. And so I think, that's been an inspiration to me. It's the small thing, but I think it shows a lot of character.
Character, absolutely. And people watch everything you do.
Yeah.
I tell, every day when I speak that you are selling yourself when you walk out that door. People watch everything that you do. You can either do it for the better or for the worse, right?
Yep.
Well, thank you for being on the Power Up Talk Show,
Thanks
Phil.
for having me.
How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty easy to find on like social media. If you're looking on like Instagram, it's Phil the Cup. If you're looking on LinkedIn or Facebook, it's just Phil Friedrich. And I always tell people Friedrich is spelled fried rich. That way there's no random E's or K's in there. And then outside of that, email and cell phone, I think, is just out there. So people could always reach out or reach out to Sandy, and you can call or email me that way.
Nice. Well, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Remember, we can make a difference. Be yourself. Be who you want to be. Be nice, because everyone's watching you, and you can do it for the better. Have a great day.